What was the sketchiest mission when you look back on all the missions that you did, whether it was, no matter where it was or who it was with? Is there one you look back on and you're like, no way, I can't believe that we did that, or we shouldn't have done that, or what's the sketchiest one you were involved with?
Yeah, the sketchiest one was Objective Ladonia in 2007 that I did with Task Force. And I've been in sketchier situations. I talk about it, in fact, in the opening of this book, talking about being on the rooftop of Starter City and taking a myriad of enemy fire from different weapon systems, RPKs, PKM, air bursting RPGs over our heads, even mortar rounds, which I thought I'd seen it all, but that scale was very dangerous. The difference between that and Objective Ladonia is the closeness in which we were facing the enemy. Ladonia was a foreign safe house for foreign fighters on the Syrian border, which included what we thought was a couple Libyan foreign fighters, which are definitely a formidable foe. I mean, you should write a book or at least add this in one of your books on how in the Green Mountains of Benghazi, it was a training center and training ground for, I think, producing some of the best warriors on the battlefield, at least that I've ever confronted. I mean, men that were our size, that were fit. And I know this from the ISR that I've watched, have been running obstacle courses, wearing body armor, having AK-47s with optics, potentially sometimes running lasers, later on running NVGs, having hiking boots, sunk watches, because they were in time and in sync with each other. Running obviously suicide vests, but more robust versions of it with grenades and pouches and AK-47 loadouts with 7 magazines each. I mean, these guys were a formidable foe. When we infilled in that target, at the time we were working with B Squadron. B Squadron was the command. We were the subordinate action arm under. This is like a TF Task Force 16 time period, where McChrystal's action arm was running the Commanders in Extremist Force, which I was a member of at the time, SEAL Team 6, Delta, and Ranger Battalion. At one time, it was also the SAS. In fact, that time period was the SAS, 22 SAS. In fact, that rotation, which was, I believe, around the same time period, but it was DevGru and 22 SAS's last rotation. In that rotation, both of those organizations took heavy casualties. I remember during our specific rotation, the 22 SAS lost several operators, and we watched it all happen on ISR from the talk. So a B Squadron command, which meant significantly we were receiving intelligence that was very accurate, and meant the confrontations we were going to be in were not coming from Siege of SOTF, the SOTF, or these commands that, depending on the intel, potentially would be a dry hole. We knew what we were going to hit was likely going to be dangerous. So we get into the confrontation. We go to infill on the X, and right off the bat, one of our Little Bird pilots peels off our MH-60. I'm on one of the MH-60s on infill. And we take incoming fire from an anti-aircraft Dishka, where the early warning detection system had 6 enemy combatants at an intersection that had a Dishka set up. They opened fire on us. That Little Bird peeled off and killed 6 enemy combatants in the first 30 seconds of infill. I'm thinking, as a sniper that's on that team of the assault troop that's going to go in, that we're not going to action this target. It's compromise. But they watch the target, nothing changes, and we decide to go and hit the target. Ironically enough, a cool caveat to the story, fast forward nearly a decade, I'm in Erbil in the Chow Hall and see that Little Bird pilot, and he's working for an interagency government organization, 3-letter organization that I'm working with. And he says, he looks at me and he goes, "I recognize you from somewhere." And I said, "You are a Little Bird pilot. You've been on a lot of rotations with us." And I said, "You remember the 07 trip?" And the first thing he vectored in, he said, "Remember when I peeled off and killed those 6 enemy combatants when you guys infilled?" And I was like, "I can't even believe you remember that." Yes, I remember exactly what happened. And we kind of caught up over Chow, and he talked about the specific moment and what he did in that instance. We get on target. We contain like a good task force action arm would, and all hell breaks loose. It's not a couple of dudes. It winds up being 13 enemy combatants, all of them rigged with suicide vests, all of them waiting for us. We ended up losing a dog that was, I'll say the handler's first name because he's a CAG dog. His name was Rick, and he was a American hero. His dog, Vinny, was killed on target, actually saved my life, was blown up and killed by a suicide bomber probably 15 yards in front of me and another gentleman. And then I was in close confrontation like everybody on that target with the enemy. I mean, we were throwing hand grenades. I threw 5 or 6 hand grenades over a berm on top of enemy combatants. One of my grenades killed 3 enemy combatants at once. I saw one of the guy's legs blow up in the air. All of this is ISR confirmed because we did obviously a good job post the assault. All 13 guys paid for it that night. We had some casualties. We lost a dog, mostly just minor injuries, nothing significant. But it was the first time that I was on a target that went into daylight and all hell had broken loose. That both the AH-6 Little Bird helicopters, the assault helicopter version of it, went Winchester. They had to go back, rearm, came back with Winchester again. And then the AC-130 gunship went Winchester and then went back to do the same, but we were already off target. And airburst and detonated all of these munitions on the target and was danger close to us. We were able to back up 150-ish meters and they had to drop munitions danger close because these guys were still alive in the grass and the tall palm trees, fighting, waiting to detonate themselves on us.